Have you ever wondered what forgotten sci-fi treasures are hiding in plain sight? The kind buried deep in YouTube's are made long before CGI ruled the galaxy. These are films that once bombed or disappeared. Now they whisper through pixelated uploads and faded reels. Here are 12 hidden retro sci-fi films you can watch free on YouTube right now. Let's dive in. Number 12. The Day the Earth Caught Fire, 1961. When it hit theaters, this British disaster drama was overshadowed by American monster flicks. But time has been kind. It tells of a world spinning off its axis after simultaneous nuclear tests tilt the planet closer to the sun. London bakes under endless heat. Rivers dry. Panic spreads. The film isn't about aliens or gadgets, it's about humans losing control. Journalists rush to report what no government dares admit. The planet itself has been weaponized by arrogance. At release, it was deemed too grim. British censors forced cuts to scenes showing government negligence. Some theaters even refused to screen it, fearing public unrest. Behind the scenes, director Val Guest fought for realism. He used genuine London heatwave footage and demanded extras sweat for real under sun lamps. Decades later, it resurfaced on YouTube, restored in haunting monochrome orange tint. Modern audiences now see it as prophetic, a warning about climate collapse decades before it became news. The silence at its final frame feels like a prayer for the Earth itself. Number 11. The Last Man on Earth, 1964. Vincent Price stood alone, literally. This adaptation of Richard Matheson's novel was dismissed as slow and talky, yet it would inspire Night of the Living Dead and every post-apocalyptic survival film since. Price plays Dr. Robert Morgan, the lone immune survivor, after a plague turns humanity into pale vampiric ghouls. By day, he hunts. By night, he hides. His loneliness feels crushing. Italian and American crews clashed constantly. Budgets vanished. Critics mocked its bleakness. Some countries banned it for imagery of corpses piled in streets, believing it too disturbing for television. But through its quiet despair, it touched something real. The exhaustion of surviving when there's nothing left to live for. Years later, public domain laws set it free. YouTube became its refuge. Now, viewers discover its raw poetry and whisper that Price's isolation mirrors their own digital solitude. Once ignored, it has become a ghostly masterpiece reborn through pixels and time. Number 10. Planet of the Vampires, 1965. Made on a shoestring by Italian maestro Mario Bava, this film looked cheap but felt cosmic. Critics laughed at its rubber suits and colored fog. Yet Ridley Scott later admitted it helped inspire Alien. Two spaceships answer a distress call from a dead planet. Crew members turn against each other under unseen forces. Their corpses rise. The planet hungers. Censors attacked its morbid imagery. Religious groups protested its suggestion that souls could be hijacked by alien entities. The US version was trimmed and retitled, losing Bava's eerie rhythm. On set, the cast sweltered inside plastic costumes under relentless lights. Bava's genius was to use colored gels and smoke to hide the lack of sets, turning limitation into surreal art. Today, its full version lives online. Once mocked, now adored by cinephiles for inventing the haunted spaceship aesthetic decades before Hollywood caught on. Its final twist that humans might be the true invaders still chills the spine. Number 9. The Incredible Shrinking Man, 1957. When it premiered, audiences expected another B-movie about radiation gone wrong. What they got instead was an existential tragedy wrapped in science fiction. The Incredible Shrinking Man begins with a simple boating accident. A mysterious mist drenches the hero Scott Carey, and slowly he begins to shrink. At first, it is amusing, then terrifying, finally cosmic. As his size decreases, his world becomes unrecognizable. A cat becomes a tiger. A basement becomes a jungle. A spider becomes a god of death. Yet the true horror is not the monsters. It is insignificance. The fear that one day man will vanish into the atom and the universe will not notice. Censors in several countries cut dialogue where Carey questions faith and existence, seeing it as blasphemous. Religious boards in parts of the United States protested its final monologue, which describes man finding meaning in infinite smallness rather than divine salvation. Behind the scenes, director Jack Arnold fought studio interference to keep the ending intact. The studio wanted a rescue scene. Arnold refused. He wanted the audience to leave with silence and awe. For decades, the movie drifted between television reruns and forgotten reels. Today, its crisp black and white print glows on YouTube, where new generations watch it free. Critics now call it one of the most philosophical sci-fi films ever made. It reminds us that the more we shrink, the larger our wonder becomes. Number 8. Quatermass and the Pit, 1967. When this British film arrived, it looked cheap next to Hollywood epics, but its ideas were revolutionary. A mysterious object is unearthed in the London Underground. Scientists believe it is a bomb, but Professor Quatermass suspects it is older than humanity itself. Inside are fossilized alien remains. Outside, psychic terror spreads through the city. Audiences expecting a monster movie found themselves facing a nightmare about human evolution and collective violence. The aliens are revealed to have engineered mankind, then abandoned us. Their influence still sleeps in our DNA. Censors hesitated. Religious groups claimed the film equated demons with extraterrestrials. In Spain, it was banned outright for blasphemy. The BBC version years earlier had caused public panic and letters to Parliament demanding it never air again. On set, the crew built cramped tunnels from painted plywood and smoke machines. The heat from the lights was unbearable. Yet the claustrophobia worked. The film felt like an archaeological descent into hell. Today, Quatermass and the Pit is celebrated as one of the smartest British sci-fi stories ever told. Its themes of ancient memory and mass hysteria echo through modern culture. Watch it now free, and you'll feel the terror of realizing our demons might not be from beyond, but from within. Number 6. It Came from Outer Space, 1953. In the early 50s, America was trembling under the shadow of the Cold War. Fear of invasion filled the airwaves. And then It Came from Outer Space. What audiences expected was another flying saucer movie. What they got was something stranger, a story that dared to say the aliens might not be the monsters after all. In a small desert town, a meteor crashes. Amateur astronomer John Putnam rushes to the site only to find an alien ship buried beneath the sand. The creatures who emerge are formless beings made of light. They take human shapes to repair their ship unseen. But paranoia spreads faster than truth. Neighbors vanish. Friends turn cold. Soon the whole town believes the invaders are among them. At the time, censors and studio executives were uneasy. The film's message of empathy toward aliens sounded dangerously like sympathy for enemies in an age obsessed with loyalty. Some theaters even advertised it as a horror film to hide its pacifist message. Behind the scenes, director Jack Arnold and writer Ray Bradbury clashed with Universal's brass. Bradbury wanted a gentle tale about misunderstanding. The studio wanted monsters. Arnold compromised using eerie theremin music and 3D effects to make the film thrilling yet thoughtful. When released, critics dismissed it as too soft. But decades later, historians saw it for what it was: a quiet protest against hysteria, a film that whispered that fear itself was the true alien. Today, It Came from Outer Space streams freely on YouTube in its shimmering black and white glory. Its desert landscapes feel timeless. Its moral feels eternal. When the alien finally departs saying, "We'll be back when you're ready," you realize it wasn't a threat. It was hope, the kind that humanity still struggles to deserve. Number 5. The Man Who Fell to Earth, 1976. When Nicholas Roeg's surreal masterpiece first arrived, it confused everyone. Critics called it indulgent. Audiences called it obscene. Censors cut whole reels. But beneath the chaos stood a quiet tragedy about loneliness disguised as science fiction. David Bowie plays Thomas Jerome Newton, an alien who lands on Earth seeking water for his dying planet. Using his advanced technology, he becomes a corporate titan trying to build a ship home. Yet the deeper he sinks into human greed and addiction, the more alien he becomes to himself. The film's fragmented editing and dreamlike imagery baffled censors who accused it of being morally corrupt. In Britain, scenes of bodily vulnerability were trimmed. In the United States, the studio re-edited it against Roeg's wishes, fearing audiences would reject its emotional despair. Bowie himself later admitted he barely remembered filming, saying he was living the character's breakdown in real life. During production, the crew battled exhaustion and improvisation. Many believed the film would never be finished. When it finally premiered in 1976, it tanked. But decades later, critics reevaluated it as prophetic. Its vision of an alien seduced and destroyed by consumer culture felt eerily like a parable for fame itself. YouTube now hosts pristine restorations where viewers can witness its hypnotic glow. Watching it today feels like drifting through a broken dream of capitalism and loneliness. Bowie's haunted eyes mirror every artist who tried to bring a piece of another world into ours. In the end, Newton never returns home. Neither do we. We stay trapped between stars and screens wondering when we lost our way. Number 4. The Andromeda Strain, 1971. When this adaptation of Michael Crichton's novel hit cinemas, it was called cold, clinical, and terrifyingly possible. The story begins when a U.S. satellite crashes in a New Mexico town, bringing something invisible back with it. Within hours, every resident is dead. Every clock has stopped. Only 2 survivors remain, a crying infant and an old drunk. Scientists are rushed to a secret underground facility called Wildfire. Their mission: identify the organism before it kills the planet. What follows is not action, but procedure. Step by step, they analyze the alien life form, discovering it mutates faster than any weapon. Audiences expecting explosions got silence and computer screens. Yet the silence was scarier. The film's sterile visuals and color-coded levels of contamination created a new language of paranoia. Censors worried its realism would cause public panic. Some even compared it to biological warfare propaganda. Universal Pictures reportedly received letters from citizens demanding to know if such a base actually existed. Behind the scenes, the production mirrored its plot. Actors performed inside sealed sets. Director Robert Wise used real NASA consultants. The script was so scientifically accurate it was later used in university microbiology courses. Initially, critics were divided. Some found it emotionless. Others called it genius. But as pandemics and viral scares swept the decades, its relevance grew. Today, the Andromeda Strain lives freely online like a digital virus rediscovered. It feels eerily prophetic in the post-pandemic world where humanity still fears what it cannot see. The film's final words remind us that survival is never guaranteed, only borrowed. Watching it now is not nostalgia. It is déjà vu. Number 3. Stalker, 1979. When Andrei Tarkovsky's Stalker was released, it baffled even seasoned cinephiles. It was too slow, too strange, and far too philosophical for the science fiction crowd. Yet over time, it became one of the most haunting films ever made. A masterpiece about faith, hope, and the human hunger for meaning disguised as a journey into forbidden territory. The story follows 3 men known only as the Writer, the Professor, and the Stalker. They travel through the zone, a quarantined wasteland where the laws of reality bend. At its center lies the room, a place said to grant one's deepest desire. But the closer they get, the more they realize the danger is not the zone. It is themselves. When it premiered, Soviet censors nearly banned it. Officials accused Tarkovsky of undermining faith in progress, portraying the Soviet dream as spiritual decay. The production itself felt cursed. A chemical plant near the filming location allegedly poisoned the crew. Years later, Tarkovsky and several others died of cancer. Many believed the zone had followed them home. Behind the scenes, chaos ruled. The film was shot 3 times after reels were mysteriously destroyed in processing. Tarkovsky clashed with technicians and endured long delays. The final cut ignored traditional sci-fi effects. No aliens, no spaceships, just rust, decay, and silence. Audiences at first hated it. Yet over decades, it grew into legend. Philosophers call it the most spiritual sci-fi film ever made. Directors from Nolan to Villeneuve cite it as inspiration. Now it floats freely on YouTube like a ghost transmission from another world. Watching it is not entertainment. It is meditation. It teaches that the greatest mysteries are not out there in the stars, but inside us. Number 2. Silent Running, 1972. Long before Hollywood discovered eco-sci-fi, there was Silent Running, a quiet, lonely film about one man's fight to save the last forests of Earth drifting through space in glass domes. When it debuted, audiences ignored it. Critics mocked it. But decades later, it became a sacred text for environmental cinema. Bruce Dern plays Freeman Lowell, a botanist aboard a massive space freighter. when Earth declares all plant life unnecessary and orders the dome's destroyed Lowell rebels. He kills his crew and drifts alone, tending to his garden with only 3 small drones for company. Universal executives panicked. They wanted adventure. Director Douglas Trumbull delivered melancholy. Censors objected to its anti-authoritarian tone and its use of violence by the supposed hero. In some countries, it was recut with a narration added to make Lowell's actions seem less tragic, more justified. Behind the scenes, the production was equally fragile. The drones were operated by amputee actors crawling inside tiny suits under unbearable heat. Trumbull used miniatures and recycled props from 2001, A Space Odyssey, to stretch his limited budget. The film vanished from theaters, but lived on in dorm rooms and late-night television. When YouTube emerged, fans uploaded copies, restoring its soul. Now its message feels prophetic. In a world still burning, its final song, about a man tending his last garden among the stars, hurts more than ever. Silent Running is not about the future. It is about regret. Watching it now feels like seeing the last heartbeat of innocence before the silence takes over. Number 1. A Boy and His Dog, 1975. Few films divide audiences like this one. Some call it genius, others call it madness, but no one forgets it. Based on Harlan Ellison's novella A Boy and His Dog, unfolds in a post-apocalyptic wasteland where a young scavenger named Vic roams with his telepathic dog Blood. Together, they survive cannibals, bandits, and the ruins of civilization. Then, Vic stumbles upon an underground society pretending the world never ended. What happens next still shocks viewers today. At release, it was banned in several countries for its nihilism and dark humor. Feminist groups protested its depiction of gender power. Censors demanded entire sequences be removed, calling it indecent and immoral. The director refused. Instead, he released it independently and let the audience decide. Behind the scenes, the chaos was real. Shooting in the Arizona desert nearly killed the cast. Star Don Johnson fainted repeatedly under the heat. Crew members fled mid-shoot, leaving only a skeleton team. When it hit theaters, it flopped, but decades later, it was rediscovered. George Miller credited it as a key inspiration for Mad Max. Its desolate landscapes and moral ambiguity became the DNA of every post-nuclear film that followed. Today, the full uncut version lives on YouTube like a relic from a future that never happened. Watching it is like finding a prophecy written in sand. It reminds us that civilization's end may not come from bombs, but from hunger for control. Its final moment is darkly funny, yet heartbreakingly human. A mirror reflecting how far we'll go just to survive. These films were dismissed, forgotten, or buried under decades of dust. Yet they survived because someone cared enough to upload them again. Each is a time capsule of fear and wonder. Which one will you watch tonight? Drop your answer below. Like, subscribe, and join us next time as we unearth more forgotten futures hiding in plain sight.